Good morning, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Season 2020 update, part of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion for September 2nd, 2020, recorded around 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's go ahead and dive straight into things. First of all, taking a look here at the wider perspective on the visible satellite here, and we can see a couple of things over the continental United States and the North Atlantic Basin. First of all, we have an area persistent troughiness and subsequent convection over portions of the Midwest and Northeast United States right now. This is all in response due to moisture advection coming from the Gulf of Mexico, also a frontal type system in position through here. And this is going to be slowly moving its way off towards the east over the next several days or so. And speaking off towards the east, we have Tropical Storm Omar, which is sitting out here in the North Atlantic Basin, well removed from land, so it's no threat to any land interests. This did become a tropical storm last night, and it does retain tropical storm intensity and status this morning, but you can see a pretty exposed low-level center in through here. That's the low-level center of circulation. Very well exposed and removed from any of the deeper convection, which is very sparse. Any of the more substantial convection is far removed off towards the north and east downstream of the center. This is because of that vertical wind shear diving in from this area of troughiness from the north. So our shear direction is out of the northwest blowing towards the southeast, from northwest to southeast. And that is going to be the main theme of Omar as it progresses into a remnant circulation in the next day or so. Again, this is going to be absorbed with the colder sea surface temperatures in this region and basically just a higher shear environment. This will eventually degenerate into just an open kind of trough of low pressure through here and be absorbed into an extratropical cyclone where it may once again intensify, but not under any tropical characteristics. So this is just about to basically die off here. Again, the remnant circulation is pretty exposed here, and it is losing tropical characteristics pretty quickly. So that will be something, of course, no land threat at all, but, marine interest, just kind of take a note of it, of course. But other than that, there's no significant land concern at this time from Tropical Storm Omar. Now, here in the southern Caribbean, we do have Tropical Storm Nana, a fairly disorganized tropical storm this morning. Although there is some banding, especially well removed off towards the north here again, some convection impacting portions of Jamaica, showers and thunderstorms, there and all the way up through the northern Yucatan because of this onshore flow. You're getting those showers and thunderstorms to kind of lift towards the north, but you can see what's happening. We have had a deep convective burst near the supposed low-level center of Tropical Storm Nana. But one of the main problems with Nana right now is the fact that it got very disrupted by all of the dry air and subsequent shear down in this environment. Now, the reason why we're seeing some wind shear is because up at the mid-levels, which is going to be represented in green, we have a stronger and faster motion component of wind motion off towards the west. However, at the low levels represented in red, we have a lower wind value, a lower trade wind value. So these differences are not causing directional shear, but they're causing speed shear. And the speed shear is still enough, although it's not coming out of a directional sense, it is still coming from a source that is causing some shear. Vortex tilting could still be a problem because one vortex structure like the mid-level vortex is going to race ahead of the low-level vortex, and thus it causes a decoupling structure and it allows some dry air to be entrained. And we can see the source of where this dry air can make its way in. Right in here, there's a break between the thunderstorms, between the kind of the central dense overcast over here and the convective canopy to the south, and this convective canopy towards the north where all of the other showers and thunderstorms are removed to the north. You have this dry air entrainment slot, and these will get worked around from time to time because, again, the low pressure center in the northern hemisphere is a counterclockwise circulation. So you're going to have this dry air slot eventually kind of wrap around from time to time into these low-level center. And you're just going to have it kind of build in until it's kind of consolidated around that center. and you get a collapse of the convective structure. And we've seen that kind of happen this morning. Now you can see we did have a pretty nice convective blow up, but again, it still remains sheared. Now the other problem here is with the convection trying to kind of be, developed here, it may actually tug a little bit of the convection and a little bit of the center towards the south. So there is still a threat that this could impact Honduras here with near tropical storm conditions, and that's why we do have tropical storm watches for this area, and tropical storm warnings will likely be issued for a portion of Honduras, likely the far western portion later tonight. Hurricane warnings will be in effect for portions of Belize later today, more than likely. Again, this is one of those situations where this could easily retain a hurricane status, but is not necessarily something that is going to happen. So again, there is some discrepancy in terms of what is going to happen here over the next couple of hours, really, but this only has about another 12 to 20, or really another 12 hours or so over water before eventually it makes landfall here somewhere near Belize. So again, folks there, obviously be ready for heavy rainfall, gusty winds, mudslides, and yes, even the possibility of isolated tornadoes, especially in this far outer band approaching the northern Yucatan here, could dump a couple of inches of rainfall along with threat for isolated tornadoes, given the fact that this is going to be a fairly sheared environment down there. Now across the rest of the tropical Atlantic, we do have a couple of areas that we're going to have to watch here over the next several days. First of all, excuse me, we have newly designated Invest Area 91L. That's this system here. And this will be moving off towards the west very slowly over the next couple of days. You can see how this area, the trade winds have really relaxed in this area. You also notice that today, yes, we still have a lot of dry air towards the north, but this dry air is abating a little bit. You have more convection down in this area in the intertropical convergence zone, and thus you have an area of favorability for these tropical waves to work within. So right now you have Invest Area 91L, which does have some showers and thunderstorms with it, but it is not very well organized. And then you have what is soon to be Invest Area 92L, which does look pretty organized. It's a tropical wave that just came off of Africa. But really and truly, it's this whole area that we're watching for development. And what development, if any, is going to be very slow to come by over the next couple of days, because this is a larger wave. And to only complicate matters further, especially for 91L, because this is a slow-moving tropical wave, and it is not as broad as 90 or what is soon to be 92L. 92L, where it's encompassing shower and thunderstorm peripheries, might actually kind of consolidate and kind of take over and swallow 91L. So to add kind of more discrepancy, or not discrepancy, but to add more uncertainty to the forecast, it's rather uncertain what's going to happen between this binary interaction with what's soon to be 92L and newly designated 91L. The interactions that these two tropical waves are going to have is going to be very crucial for the overall evolution, and models really differ on what is going to happen. We'll show some of the model differences here in a moment. But first of all, here taking a look at tropical storm Nana. It is going to be something that we are going to have to watch here very carefully over the next several days or so. And this could provide some impacts generally towards Belize over the next several days or so. So this is going to be something that we are going to have to watch very carefully, as it could become a hurricane, on approach into Belize. And, this is making landfall here at about 2 a.m. Thursday. And again, this could easily kind of just sneak a little bit to the south. Again, it's not necessarily a guarantee that it could become, a hurricane, but there is certainly the possibility that this could definitely become a hurricane as it approaches Belize. So for that reason, we do have hurricane watches that are in effect for all of Belize, and a tropical storm watch for portions of Honduras. And again, this is going to be very important because as the system kind of takes on more of this westerly or even a west-southwest dive, it could bring some tropical storm conditions to portions of Honduras. So again, That could be expected, and then going over towards portions here of Guatemala, this could also produce some tropical storm conditions over portions of Guatemala going forward with time, and this would be by about 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So again, the bottom line is that we are going to have some impacts from Tropical Storm Nana. Sustained winds right now of 60 miles per hour, moving west at 18 miles per hour. And the thing here, again, is that, even if this is not impacting, the northern portions here of Belize or whatever, this is still going to provide a concern for specific areas. Again, that's going to provide a pretty substantial concern for mudslides. Obviously, damaging winds, 60, 70, maybe even 80 miles per hour in some of those gusts. And also, it is going to have, obviously some, mudslide potential, tornado potential as well, damaging winds, etc. So you're kind of getting the full basket of potential here in terms of hazards over the next couple of days from Tropical Storm Nana. So again, just something to be mindful of. This is going to bring impacts. Whether or not, it's a hurricane at this point doesn't really matter. A difference between 60 and 75 miles per hour, or even 70 between, 70 and 75 miles per hour really is trivial at this point, and it doesn't really matter. Overall, the impacts are going to be the same. This is, at the point now where this is going to provide dangerous, life-threatening impacts regardless. Now, obviously, life-threatening in a different sense than what Hurricane Laura was in Louisiana. You're not going to have 150 mile per hour winds. But the bottom line is you can easily get 80 miles per hour in some of those bands that come through, and they bring, they transport the, everything from, way up top, and they transport that down to the surface. Very possible that we get, 70, 80 mile per hour winds in some of these, bands closer to the center. So it's just something to be mindful of as time goes on. But again, mudslides certainly going to be another potential there. Elsewhere across the Atlantic Basin, this is Invest Area 91L. This is our tropical wave that is moving very slowly over the next several days. And we have soon to be Invest Area 92L, which is now moving off the coast of Africa. And this will be moving near the Cabo Verde Islands within the next few days, and then over towards portions just to the north and east of the Lesser Antilles, several hundred miles towards the northeast of the Lesser Antilles within the next 5 days or so. Now, one thing I will say is that, again, for folks in the Lesser Antilles, there's no direct threat from any of these tropical waves to Puerto Rico, the Lesser Antilles, Trinidad, Tobago, whatever. There's no threat at the moment from these two systems. However, as we progress, 5, 6, 7 days out, by early next week, there might be something to talk about for impacts towards the Lesser Antilles. Now, again, a lot is going to depend on this ridge of high pressure, but we'll show you here in some of the models that they are starting to pick up on the evolution of this. And of course, the models have done bad this year, but we're just going to have to see, because we could see, storm after storm after storm after storm start to develop. This is the peak of season. We were expecting this. So now's the time where things are going to actually start to matter. So if you live, in the Lesser Antilles right now, Barbados, Trinidad, Tobago, Grenada, the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Antigua, even up towards Puerto Rico and St. Croix, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, right now there is no significant threat from these two waves. However, of course, it is hurricane season. We all need to be prepared. So it's just something to kind of take mindful, to kind of take note of, that we do have something, or, two waves that we're going to have to monitor very carefully, because the evolution of them is still a little bit uncertain as time kind of progresses. Now, with all that being said, this is a look here at the 850 millibar relative vorticity product, the spin in the atmosphere at roughly about 5,000 feet off the ground. And for reference, these reds and whites here, that's your higher cyclonic spin at the 5,000 foot level. And you can clearly note here are two tropical storms. I really wish they didn't have the symbols on them. But these two tropical storms right here, you can see this is a tropical storm Omar. It's got a pretty round appearance, but you notice kind of that it's entangled within this larger kind of frontal scale boundary. And this is going to be quickly losing tropical characteristics. This is Tropical Storm Nana down here approaching Belize and the northern coast of Honduras. This is our area of invest right now, invest area 91L. And then these are two other little areas that we're going to have to watch very carefully, and that is soon to be invest area 92L. So we have a lot kind of on this map, but you can see generally our two tropical storms right now, pretty round in appearance, kind of goes without saying there. So healthy vorticity signatures with that. Now, interestingly enough, though, Invest 91L does have a pretty good vorticity signature with it this morning. This was taken roughly about 8 o'clock this morning, but you can definitely see that it has a pretty round appearance. Now, it is stretched throughout the intertropical convergence zone, which is kind of down in through this region. That's the intertropical convergence zone, and embedded within that, you have these little kind of monsoon troughs, basically. But this is trying to kind of form its own piece of energy, close off, and then eventually break away and maybe move north of the intertropical convergence zone, which at that point would be a tropical cyclone. So it does look like it is trying to consolidate a little bit more this morning. It has a healthier appearance, so certainly it's doing a lot better than it was earlier this morning. So that's certainly some good news. Well, that's certainly some good news in terms of the storm structure, that it's looking better. But of course, we hope that this isn't going to turn out to be anything major. Now, the one thing that Tropical Storm Nana and eventually Invest 91L will have kind of plenty to work with is these sea surface temperatures, these warm waters here. Now, Omar is now moving well out here. So it's, roughly on the northern tip of this, 26, 27 line here. So it's going to be moving still out into, warmer waters, but it is going to be cooling off. And you're not going to have this insane, runaway water temperature like you have down here in the Caribbean and Southwestern Atlantic. But you can really see where, again, where Omar is right, or where Nana is right now, sitting within a pocket of 30 Celsius water, is very warm all the way up into the coast. So it is possible that this will intensify into a hurricane. But again, we kind of discussed some of the challenges that Nana's going to face. So again, not really expecting, obviously, something significant, but this could still be a hurricane on approach into Belize and the northern coast of Honduras. So it's very important to understand the potential for life-threatening impacts to those areas. Certainly, wind damage, storm surge, upwards of, 3 to 5 feet or so, heavy rainfall, mudslides, tornadoes, kind of goes without saying there. But with Invest Area 91L, now it is still kind of sitting well out here at this point in time. It's actually off the screen. But what you're going to be having is, over the next couple of days, as it generally moves westward, this area of warm sea surface temperatures kind of awaits it. So that is going to be no concern. And this will certainly have more than plentiful water temperature to work with and high upper ocean heat content to work with as time progresses throughout the remainder of the day. So it's going to be something important that we're going to really have to watch. Now, speaking of Invest 91L, this is the track guidance as of 12Z this morning, or 8 a.m. And we notice here that, first of all, we don't have the models such as the HWRF, the HMON, some of the more typical models. Right now, you have a lot of your consensus guidances, you have your GFS models, and your TAB models, and basically your extrapolated and climatology and persistence models. So a lot of this is really all these statistical guidance. You don't have the ships model in here. You don't have any of that right now. Because this was just designated an Invest as of last night, you don't necessarily have all of the guidance in there currently. But of course, we'll be getting more as the Hurricane Center feels like it needs to devote more resources to it. However, of course, right now, the general consensus within the models, and again, this isn't necessarily made to be taken for verbatim, but a lot of the models kind of just hang this system around and kind of almost does a loop-de-loop over the next 72 hours or so. Some of them have vected more down into the monsoon trough, like some of this deeper convection. That's the TABD model. That mainly stands for, the D there stands for deep convection. The M here stands for medium convection. And I think there's another one. Yeah, the S here stands for shallow convection. So it's just kind of different methodologies. The AVIN does much of the same. It just kind of sits around, mills around here for the next 72 hours or so. Some of them kind of affected off towards the south, while others kind of affected northward. Again, it really just remains to be seen how really what soon to be 92L is going to do here. A lot of that is going to kind of matter for the overall evolution of 91. Now we can see here on the intensity guidance, this is the early cycle guidance from 12Z. Again, most of the models, interestingly enough, the ship's model here does bring this into a tropical storm near hurricane intensity. Right now, though, most of the guidance that is running, only the Shift 4 model, basically what the Shift 4 is, it's a climatology and persistence, and this is what the National Hurricane Center uses to kind of compare their skill against. If their skill is above the Shift 4, it has some skill to it. If it is below the Shift 4 climatology and persistence, it does not have skill. That's basically how the National Hurricane Center kind of judges their intensity guidance. But again, generally, you have most models that right now do not favor this becoming a tropical storm. Really, most models only bring it up here after the next 5 days or so. Even the IVCN, which is the multi-model consensus, really kind of dips this off and then a sharp increase. And again, whether or not that really happens or not is going to be the big question. But again, only right now about 3 models, including maybe the GFS here, bringing up at the very end. But even the LGEM model does not even bring this to near tropical storm strength. But again, in the short term, this does not look like it is going to strengthen much at all. Now, of course, we'll get more model guidance as the Hurricane Center feels like they need to devote towards it. But currently, there is nothing significantly expected at this time. Now, what you're looking at here is the ship's model. This is a diagnostic model, but it's also it's a blend between basically a statistical and a dynamical model, because it includes some dynamical processes like the HWRF and HMON hurricane-specific models, and some of the statistical models like the LGEM and the multi-model consensus, etc. So this is just kind of a combination of both of those. And what you're taking a look at here first is the shear. This is in knots. But right now, at least for most of the storm's lifetime, throughout the next, even beyond 5 days, we're going to have a relatively high shear environment, with shear values running in most cases above 20, in some cases touching 30, all the way throughout really the next 5 days or so. After the next 5 days, you start to see the shear drop off into a more manageable phase, with 18 knots here at hour 144, and by the end of this run here at hour 168, only 13 knots of wind shear, and the model suggests this would be close to hurricane intensity with no land interaction, because this is the velocity in knots with a no land impact would be suggesting 73 knots. So this is close to hurricane intensity at hour 168. So it is very important that could be the very case here over the next several days, that if this does find it into a more manageable environment, this does have the potential to strengthen beyond 5 days. But it is something that's going to be very important to know how that all plays out. Now, another thing that's really crucial here is the 700 to 500 millibar relative humidity. And this is shown here again. The relative humidity for the next while is going to be relatively unfavorable for the next 48 hours, with values only in the mid to upper 50s and then eventually approaching the lower 60s. After that time, however, the relative humidity will start to increase as we go throughout time, from about hour 60 all the way to the end of the run through hour 168, where relative humidities, the 700 to 500 millibar relative humidity values are going to be consistently in the 70s, upper 60s, and low 70s. So this suggests that it is going to be working into a more favorable environment, and drop beyond hour 96, it is entirely possible that we are going to start to see additional strengthening and consolidation occur. Now, one of the things that we're going to have to watch again is the ship's RI potential. This is the potential for rapid intensification. And again, really not showing much, only a 10% chance of rapid intensification of 25 knots over a 24-hour period, which is only one time the climatology mean. So not really indicating any significant rapid intensification processes here. And of course, anything beyond that is all at a 0%. So Not really seeing anything significant. Again, even 35 knots over 24 hours, only a 5%, which is 1.3 times the climatology mean. And again, so really not seeing anything that's really going to draw my attention. But we will have to watch as the shear starts to decrease beyond the 5-day realm. The relative humidity should start to also increase at that very time as well. When that relative humidity starts to increase, we will probably start to see the storm really start to try to intensify and consolidate. Again, our relative humidity values should start to increase beyond the 5-day realm. So that's going to be something that we're going to have to watch very carefully as time advances. Now, with all that being said, this is kind of our final stop today with the forecast models. This is the GFS 500 millibar or 850 millibar relative vorticity, the spinning atmosphere 5,000 feet off the ground. Again, to kind of tell what's what here, this is Tropical Storm Omar, this is Tropical Storm Nana, and this is the deep tropics out in this area. I mainly want you to focus on this area out through here as we kind of progress through time. You notice how the GFS starts to spin up what is soon to be 92L. It's pretty consolidated here. We have another area of disturbed weather here. But notice what starts to happen. We get a little bit of an area that is on the 5-day realm here approaching Barbados. Now, whether or not this is Invest 92L or not, or 91L, I'm very uncertain of. But at the 5-day realm, there is a little speckle there. It's very hard to see on the model, but approaching Barbados and the Lesser Antilles. Now, we know how this goes. We saw this with Nana, we saw this with Laura, we've seen this with Gonzalo, we've seen this with Isaias. We've seen it one too many times this year to kind of rule out the potential of a tropical cyclone trying to develop here near the Lesser Antilles within 5 days. This would be on September 7th, on Monday at 1 in the morning. Yeah, it's certainly possible that the little area of disturbance could kind of try to consolidate and, form its own little energy source down here. So it's in the 5-day realm. It's got my attention, and it's certainly trying. Now, you can certainly see here the remnants of Omar out here getting caught up in this frontal system, and also your easterly trades across here. You also have 2 tropical cyclones beyond the 5-day realm, 3 actually, that develop down here in the main development region. You have 1 wave here, 1 wave here, and 1 wave here. All of these are tropical cyclones on the model forecast here. So there is the potential, and of course, this is beyond 5 days, but this wave does kind of try to sneak a little bit in here, and there might even be a subtropical cyclone out here. And just a real quick look here at the 500 millibar heights. Again, this is your strength of the ridge. Again, what you basically have is you have a, ridge that's out here. Now, there is a little bit of a weakness in through here, but you have a strengthening ridge out here and a fairly strong ridge over 600 decameters here. And this is roughly at about 18,400 feet in the atmosphere. And just to kind of push this forward, you can see how this is going to try to link back up with this ridge. And we're not really looking at individual strengths of whatever here. But the bottom line is that this ridge is going to try to link up here. Now, this is very far out in time. But the bottom line is that this has some potential that these waves bear watching as we progress throughout the next several weeks. And even for what it's worth here on the Euro forecast, again, this is 24 hours out. This is by 8 o'clock tonight. We have, obviously, some circulations here. I think, let's see. This is actually the circulation of Omar here, and this is Nana. This is the deep tropics out in this region. And again, we can see that even in the Euro forecast, we have these tropical cyclones that do try to kind of consolidate. There's also another sneaky wave trying to develop out in this region down here in the Caribbean once again. And that area actually moves into the Bay of Campeche. So, well, again, we can never be for sure what is going to happen. We certainly seem to have a pretty busy and active period upcoming. And it certainly seems like we're going to have a lot to watch here as time kind of goes on. So, again, a lot is going to depend here on what's going to happen over the next several days or so, kind of going forward. But again, right now, a lot is relatively uncertain, and I think we have the latest 11 o'clock advisory. Yep, so the 11 o'clock advisory from Nana, hurricane warnings remain in effect for portions of those areas. And, this could become a hurricane right before landfall. So just something to kind of watch here as time kind of progresses. All right. Well, that being said, hope you all have a great rest of your morning. I will have a second video update later this afternoon. Have a great rest of your morning and early afternoon. I'll talk to you guys again some more later this afternoon.